Just waiting for the, cause my camera lags a little bit, so I'm just waiting a sec. All right, so City of Devils Session 8. Only really reporting on it because it has much needed context for the 10th session, which again will be the finale of the first chapter. So, what happened? Well, since we had so many delays, and it was getting ridiculous, before I decided to bring Andrew and everybody, including Xanthus, back for the 9th session, which was important, we decided to do sort of a in-between session because Robert hadn't gotten to do anything for months while we were on, hiatus, weeks, months, whatever. So he hadn't gotten to do anything, and I was like, well, there's probably enough room in the narrative for me to squeeze in one more scene before we move into the actual important part. So, okay, what happened? Basically, Robert was approached by two people, both from the asylum, so two people that escaped after he broke out. And they were characters that Raccoon made, and didn't really. I mean, he told me a little bit about them, but actually seeing them in action was a bit weird. There's one character, and in these are characters, by the way, that he's running, that he wanted to put into the story, and I was just like, okay. But you'll see in a moment why I had sort of a problem with this. We actually started with these two people showing up and talking to Robert. So the first person is a girl named Gwen, a woman named Gwen, who used to be on the city council, was a mayor of some sort of a town east of the city of Black Bay, and she was ousted after she had basically tried to slander one of the large, well popular people in the town, saying that he was a vampire and that he had murdered her family, which is ridiculous, right? So she gets thrown in the asylum here, and eventually, yeah, gets broken out by Robert. But she believes that Robert is a vampire because he looks like one, and effectively tries to get him to spill on where Orfeo or this other head vampire is, because they're both effectively working under the prince, the leader of the vampires. And at the same time, there was another girl who attacked Robert in the asylum, or at least like tried to attack. I think it was Umbry that she actually attacked Angel, this girl who's very cheery but also a literal mad genius. Now, mind you, I didn't approve Genius for this game, the third-party game for White Wolf. I like Genius, but it wasn't really on my list of things that I wanted to be involved in this game. So Raccoon's just like, oh, I have a Genius character that I want to use, so I'm using it, and I'm like, all right, fine. So now he has like three characters all running around who are all sort of important in a way, and I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not really okay with it, but at this point, there's really nothing I can do. So Angel, her whole thing is that she will stab someone with a needle because she's a medical genius. She'll stab someone with a needle. It has this sort of nerve poison in it that will paralyze someone. So she jabs someone, paralyzes them, and then experiments on their body like some kind of mad doctor. Creepy. Super creepy. Anyway, point is, they approach Robert. Now, at the same time, Ilena, following leads, figures out. Ilena Umbry, I think, was. I forget, because she changes her name a lot. Ilena Umbry, whatever. This, mage of the Veil, who's also a secret Valkyrie agent, yada, yada, yada. Pretty cool. She wasn't doing anything really up till now, besides kind of following around. She decided to follow up on Robert, because again, she hadn't been able to do anything in the same amount of time that Robert has. So I was like, you know what? You're here during the session, so let's have you do something. So what she did was she followed up on Robert, figured out, hey, he's probably gonna try to rob someplace because that's what he was planning to do. Because she was watching him at the asylum this whole time. So she goes to her boss, David, at the museum, and David says, oh, well, okay, so if there are people planning on breaking in, then I'm going to prepare my security. One very important thing was that in my original idea, when I originally planned this, he had no idea they were coming, so they had the element of surprise, and David wasn't even going to get involved. Now, David actually knows that people are coming, and he's going to be prepared to basically stop them from stealing anything from the museum, which makes this a lot more difficult for them. But it kind of balances out, because as you'll see, Rob's going to get a little more help than he had originally planned to have. So it sort of balances the scales a little bit. And now I'm in negotiations to see if David's apprentice will actually show up, because Carl is playing that character as a side character. So I'm trying to see if David's apprentice will actually show up, so the master and apprentice will fight the pirate crew. How interesting. Oh, and also they have an agent on the inside, which I'll get to in a minute. So Umbry basically figures out where Rob might be based on, deduction. Oh, there's a, giant shipwreck that belonged to him. Maybe he'd check that out. So she follows him, gets up close to the beach. Kane, one of Rob's crew members, is just sort of patrolling the area. He goes down. Angel stabs him in the neck with some kind of needle thing. He gets paralyzed. Mage gets paralyzed. She goes down. Because it actually is designed to work on supernatural creatures. Mages, physically, though, are mostly human. So there wasn't really any debate there. The actual debate came later. So she knocks those two out and starts making her way to where Robert is. So Robert's just kind of chilling out, realizes most of his crew is gone while he's starting to plan this heist. Then when he gets out there, he has a little tussle with Gwen. They have a fist fight, and then Angel comes in and jabs him. He gets actually a few turns, because we had argued, they work on vampires, but since he has no actual blood flow, the poison isn't going to paralyze him immediately. So he got a few extra turns to do some last minute actions. So what does he do? Pulls out his pistol, shoots Gwen in the chest. She goes down, because one of the interesting things was she actually didn't take a lot of damage from that shot, because it was kind of a desperate shot. He didn't hit her super accurately in a vital area or anything. She just got kind of shot in the chest, and it was probably not a direct hit. But Raccoon was controlling this character, and he was like, honestly, if she's taking a musket, or not a musket, flintlock shot at point blank like that, it's going to do a lot more damage. So we actually argued that she's probably in a lot more pain than the dice would indicate, which, I'm okay with, because it's an NPC, so we're just like, alright. So she's on the ground, she's bleeding at this point, and she's got a huge wound. And Robert just sort of eventually is just, they don't, see, there's another interesting point about this, is that they are paralyzed, but they're not unconscious. So everything that's going on, Robert can actually see. So that's how Angel kind of tortures people, is that she actually leaves them conscious, but paralyzes them. So she will actually, he can actually see what's going on. He doesn't get knocked out. The mage is the same way, and I'll get back to that in a sec. A lot of stuff going on at once here. So basically, Rob did that thing, and he had to watch, because Angel does this really weird sort of. I actually compared it to in One Piece, how Trafalgar Law just sort of pulls people's organs out of them and just holds them in his hands. But what Angel has the ability to do, her special power, is that she can literally do that. Like she'll like pull out people's body parts and then put them back together because she's a mad scientist. She can literally start doing this. So that's how she fixes Gwen. And Robert has to watch this, and I mean, he was able to deal with it, but it's still kind of horrific. And he can clearly see, okay, this girl has something that makes her not normal. Um, once he kind of like is able to speak to them, he realizes that they sort of have similar interests, and Gwen says to him, "Okay, so if you help me hunt down these vampires, I'll help you steal whatever you want." And Angel has her own motive because one of the mages in the council, Stranger, is her rival. So she wants to lure him out by screwing with the mages, I guess. Which, in my opinion, is a bad idea because these are like master level mages we're talking about who are not to be messed with by normal people. Very, high tier. Not anything like maybe like a archmage, like a Dumbledore sort of thing. But I said it's definitely like something like Snape or something. Like, you don't want to go up against these like high tier mages because they could mess you up. Anyway, so effectively they join the crew. Effectively they join the crew. So now Robert has even more people helping him out. Now whether he trusts them completely, I'm not sure. We get back to what Umbria is doing. She's on the floor. What she does is, we had decided, I actually didn't look in the book for this, but there is an ability. Raccoon pointed out that scrying would be possible, effectively using mind and space arcana to move your mind, which makes sense because mind and space should be able to do that. So moving your mind with mind and space makes sense. I didn't look up the rules for it at the time because I was kind of just trying to move things along, and it was in the middle of a combat. So I was just sort of like, okay, you can do that. It's going to cost you mana like any kind of improvised spell, but effectively she's able to move her projection of her perception, like her mind effectively, over to another place so she can view what's going on. It actually was a type of scrying, but then I never actually got the chance to look it up until afterwards. And Xanthus, like I said, used the same trick in the next session because he has the same kind of capabilities, same arcana, and it was something that I thought was cute, because it was a cool ability that I didn't think about them being able to use. And like while she's paralyzed on the floor, I'm like, well, what are you gonna do? You're magic. Can't you do something? You can't use rotes because you need hand motions for that. But you should be able to do something, especially if you're a mind mage. Your mind should be able to go anywhere. So she did do that. Um, Eventually, we what happened was after they started negotiating, the Shadow kind of got fed up with these two people, and he's like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna pull like a little trick out my sleeve. He summons some specter buddies that he has in the underworld to the that's one of the abilities he has. He summons a bunch of specters into the beach. Um, so they start coming down, screaming. Gwen and Angel can't even see them, but Robert can. So he's like, "Oh crap, those are specters," and they start tearing stuff up. Angel doesn't seem to be affected by them at all for some reason, and Gwen gets torn up by these things. Like, she gets scratched, and it actually hurts her soul. I describe them. They're sort of like Dementors. So, see, I have a lot of Harry Potter references. Harry Potter was on the TV before I turned it off, so sort of in that mood right now. A lot of Harry Potter references because I've seen a lot of it. Dementors, sort of like how they'll rip your soul apart if you touch them. And normally, to humans, they don't do a lot of damage, though they're usually only there to harm spiritual entities or other ghosts. But in this case, there is an ability that specters can get where they can actually tear through flesh, and they were in a material form at this point, so anything could really harm them. So they were vulnerable as well, but I had assumed, okay, they're taking material form, so they should be able to affect things as if they were solid, and they were. So they're tearing Gwen apart, and she almost dies. Actually, before she ran away, like she ran away, and they chased after her, you know. But what Umbri does, like she does the projection because she had done the projection, gotten rid of it, and then while Angel was doing her operation because it was gruesome to look at. Then she once the specters came up, because Umbri can't really see them without sight. I think she turned the sight on. I'm not sure, but she ended up, being able to see these things either through just sensing them, because mages can do that. They would be able to sense them, or being able to see them. What she decided to do was project over the ship where the ghosts are attacking the specters, and she uses her mind magic to basically project. We didn't really, because it was very vague how it would work, but the principle was, because Prime is usually used to make illusions, I believe, but in this case it was more like she was getting inside their minds and projecting some kind of like to intimidate them, to scare them away. And I mean, normally they're specters who don't have any kind of emotion or feeling or whatever, so it wouldn't normally work. But the principle is, if you project a bigger, stronger ghost, because she's effectively in a ghost form right now, and if she projects like a larger form, uh, as a ghost, it might scare them away, like a huge specter monster or something. Because we didn't really describe what it was. It was just whatever they were, whatever would scare them, because that's what the ability essentially is. She's able to put a thought into their head to freak them out. And so she actually ended up using this to create, I guess, in a way, a Patronus. Like, it was that kind of thing. To freak them out. See, with the Dementor metaphors, it gets kind of weird. So she gets them to flee away. They they run, and then Umbri, like, once the paralysis starts to wear off, she walks up to Robert. She's like, "Oh, can I join your crew too? I make a good chef." Because the thing is with Umbri, since she's a mind mage, one of her rotes, one of her special abilities is that she has the ability to essentially download any skills she wants into her brain, kind of like the Matrix. Like, she can download uh, like data, or not necessarily data, like more like unconscious thoughts. But principle is, it's like the Matrix when Neo learns kung fu. He just kind of learns it, and he's like, okay. She can do the same thing with anything. So, like, she doesn't have driving skill or very high occult skill, but what she can do is she can download that information into her head. So at any time, she can be pretty decent at anything. Not, great, but good enough to get by, like, because she has, good enough intelligence where, like, okay, you gain enough knowledge to really get by with this. She doesn't become a master instantly, but it's good enough. So she could learn to cook, and Robert's like, well, we don't have a cook, so she's like, oh, good, I can learn to cook, I could do that. But Angel and Gwen are aware that she was working at the asylum, so they're all very suspicious of her, but they let her join the crew anyway, because she's actually, like, supposed to be kind of a, dwarf, lowly kind of thing, so she's really cute, she's really, she looks harmless, and they need a cook, so, because they don't have one, so Robert lets her join, and so this is effectively where we're going with this, is now we have Robert's expanded crew, so we have, like, the 1, 2, 3, crew members, Angel, Gwen, well, 1, 2, 3, yeah, 3, I think there was supposed to be more, it's Kane, Nadia, the arms dealer guy, and then I think there was another one. No, that's just 3, and then Angel, and Gwen, and now Umbri. So that's 6. 6 people going into this museum. But now David is aware, and he's going to have guards there, and he's probably going to bring his apprentice. So it's turning into this. It's going to be a huge battle. I don't know who's going to win, because honestly, it could go either way. I don't want to spoil, like, stuff that I'm preparing for that, but it should be interesting. Um, because Robert has to deal with the glove, right? That scared him away from the museum the first time. So when he goes back there, how is he going to deal with the glove? How is he going to get his treasure back? What kind of, how is David going to deal with them, and um what what can this crew do against high-powered mages? Well, we'll see. We'll see. Time will tell, and eventually, it'll be. I think we scheduled it for Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. So should be pretty soon. We'll figure this out, and then we move to chapter 2. I'm getting ahead of myself. For now, that's it. Kind of a long video, but a lot happened in that session. And even though I'm not too fond of the 2 extra NPCs that Raccoon made, they could be interesting in the long term. But, I mean, the one problem with the session, I think, was that Angel and her, paralyzing needles, kind of a little bit, we all agreed they were kind of too good. And it's sort of a problem. But in the same way, I have ideas for how to deal with that, how to limit it at least a little bit. Make it a little bit more reasonable as I can. Because I've had a long history with having to nerf super powerful items to the point where they'd be just a bit more reasonable. It really depends on the player at that point, how much they're willing to negotiate that. And I mean, it was kind of interesting that even though we had these people knocked out, they were all still able to do stuff. Like Robert was knocked out, but he had a few turns because of his undeadness that he was able to make a solid, one of those kind of like in Borderlands or Call of Duty where you have the, dying shot kind of thing. Or you have Umbri just being able to project herself, even though she's on her physical body is like on the floor, which I thought was like very mage-like. I was like, well, you shouldn't be completely paralyzed because you're magic. You can bend reality. Why are you limited by having your physical body disabled? Especially being a mental mage, It was a cool thing because being limited like that forced them to be in a desperate situation for once and allowed them to discover kind of new powers, which was neat. But yeah, moving on, the next session is going to be the actual heist, and it's become a lot more complicated. So we'll see how that goes next time. Next video I want to do is going to be on my new GURPS campaign, The Hive. I'm going to see when I'm in the mood to do that. Kind of have had sort of a rocky day, and I'm really busy tomorrow, so maybe I'll finish it by tonight too. I don't know. Just trying to get this out of the way first. We'll see.